On the outskirts of a bustling suburban town, where the sun painted the sky in golden hues before sinking below the horizon, was a neighborhood lined with charming houses boasting picket fences and gardens bursting with life. Here lay Adrian Hughes' family home, a place rich with history and memory, nestled among the gentle hum of summertime suburban life. It was a modest house, worn around the edges but filled with warmth and character, much like Adrian himself. The true gem of his abode, hidden behind a high wooden fence, was a glistening swimming pool. To Adrian, this pool was more than a shimmering oasis. It was a gateway to innocence and solace, a rare treasure passed down through the hands of his late parents. In the silent evenings, Adrian often found himself by the pool's edge, feet dangling in the cool water, gazing at the ripples that danced like whispers across its mirrored surface. Here, amidst the rhythmic lapping of water and the occasional chirping of crickets, Adrian's thoughts floated back to carefree childhood summers, a time when life's complexities were defined by the simple joy of a cannonball splash or the sun-warmed embrace of the water. Yet, within this idyllic scene lurked a source of increasing discontent. Adrian's sanctuary had involuntarily become the neighborhood's communal bath. As weeks turned into months, the number of unexpected and uninvited guests swelled. Neighbors he'd once exchanged easy smiles with at the mailbox now lounged poolside with little regard for his boundaries, their children shrieking in delight, diving and splashing in a cacophony that shattered Adrian's much-needed quiet. The irony was not lost on Adrian. For a man who had always prized harmony, this continuous invasion was a bitter pill to swallow. He had inherited not only a home and its joys but also the burden of maintaining its sanctity. Every intrusion was another chink in his armor, stripping away layers of patience and understanding. Yet, something kept him from voicing his frustration directly, a lingering hope, perhaps, that the naturally amiable neighborhood spirit would self-correct. Most days, Adrian returned home from work, a grinding job in systems analysis that left him drained from prolonged hours beneath fluorescent lights and relentless deadlines, only to find the noise of unchecked abandon replacing the serenity he craved. Felt like a betrayal. Each abandoned towel or forgotten pool toy was a testament to casual disregard. Small, silent reminders that his wishes mattered little. He tried addressing the issue with his characteristic gentleness, penning polite notes and airing tentative conversations during community gatherings. "I'd appreciate it if we could find a way to share the space more considerately," he'd suggest, returning invariably with amiable nods that crumbled into nothingness once backs were turned. The paradox of the situation tugged at him relentlessly. Here he was, a person who shied away from confrontation yet felt slowly penned in by his inability to act decisively. As the intrusion continued unabated, Adrian found himself wrestling not only with his neighbor's encroachments but also with his mounting resentment, a foreign and unsettling companion. One evening, clutching a book he could no longer concentrate on, Adrian retreated to the poolside only to find it deserted. Yet even the silence couldn't offer solace. The air was thick with unspoken recrimination, the evidence of earlier trespasses scattered like debris after a storm. The chaos of his formerly serene haven reflected the turmoil within him, feelings of inadequacy rising like tides. In that moment of vulnerability, the yearning for peace welled up in him, a visceral need for a bastion of his own making. His thoughts wandered to happier times, recalling the laughter of his parents as they hosted their own gatherings here, always mindful of open invitations and mutual respect. They had taught him the value of kindness and generosity, principles now at odds with the simmering ire within his heart. Adrian's mind reeled with possible solutions. Could he simply lock the gate and weather the uncomfortable fallout? Should he abandon the notion of ownership over what was supposed to be a personal retreat and accept it as a public offering to the community? These thoughts lingered, leaving him suspended in a state of anxious indecision. Then a flicker of insight sparked within him, the glimmer of a third path, a way to uphold both his needs for solitude and his penchant for community. He pondered whether justice, in this instance, meant reclaiming his space, or perhaps discovering a more harmonious existence with those around him. The answer was elusive, wavering in the shadows that the setting sun cast over the water. Thus begun an introspective journey, the fulcrum of change balancing on a single question: how could he transform frustration into reconciliation? As the sun's warmth lingered on his skin, Adrian realized he needed to lead with empathy while holding firm to his boundaries, seeking a resolution brewing somewhere between heart and mind. With a deep breath, he resolved to find this elusive balance, to exercise the restraint of his parents before him while summoning the courage to advocate for himself. He knew that if he could bridge the divide between his desires and the community's burgeoning need, perhaps his pool, could become a shared sanctuary, one that embraced the complex weave of history, harmony, and hope. The path was uncertain, but he was determined to navigate it, step by deliberate step. As the neighborhood settled into the languid rhythm of another summer, Adrian Hughes' frustration mounted like a storm on the horizon. The days stretched long and unyielding under the oppressive weight of his unexpressed discontent. His sanctuary, a shimmering expanse of water fenced in by weathered wood, had become a battleground for the conflicting forces within him, a desire for solitude pitted against an ingrained reluctance to disrupt the peace. The morning sunlight danced across his bedroom walls, filtering through curtains as he awoke each day with a familiar sense of weariness. Work, with its endless spreadsheets and pressing deadlines, felt like a reprieve compared to the cacophony that awaited him at home. Each evening, he trudged back through the tree-lined streets, the ambient sounds of laughter and radio murmurs hinting at another invasion of his personal refuge. One late afternoon, returning home under the sweltering sun, Adrian was met with an all-too-familiar sight. His pool, the one vestige of tranquility in his life, brimmed with boisterous activity. A trio of neighborhood children splashed about while their parents watched from the sidelines, oblivious to the discomfort painted across Adrian's face. The scene was awash with carefree laughter that might have been infectious, had it not been tinged with the bitterness of his own impotence. He stood at the edge of the fence momentarily, a statue draped in shadow, before entering the fray. Carefully, he sidestepped puddles and discarded belongings as he approached the group. Clearing his throat, he offered a strained smile. "Hey there, enjoying yourselves?" The children, too caught up in their aquatic antics, failed to notice his presence, but the parents turned, expressions flickering between guilt and entitlement. Adrian, one of them, a man named Tom, greeted with an exaggerated warmth. "We hope you don't mind." The kids were dying for a swim. Adrian felt a familiar hitch in his chest, the swirl of emotions threatening to fracture his composure. "It's fine," he managed, the words coming out stilted, betraying the tightening grip of restraint. Inside, the fragments of his patience shifted, struggling to maintain their facade of calm. In the quiet corners of his mind, he recalled the lessons of his youth, the evenings when his father would sit by this same pool, imparting wisdom under a canopy of summer stars. "Respect is mutual, son." His father's voice echoed in memory, a guiding star in the murky sea of his current dilemma. Adrian desperately clung to these teachings, even as they collided with the raw edges of his discontent. Once, after another fruitless encounter, Adrian found solace in the dim light of his kitchen, a cup of chamomile tea warming his hands. He replayed the scene in his mind, crafting retorts and responses he wished he'd had the courage to voice. Yet each confrontation played out with the same conclusion, a cycle leaving his resolve feeling thinner, more threadbare with each disharmony. His reflections were interrupted by a knock at the back door. Sarah, the neighborhood's matriarch and an unexpected ally in Adrian's increasingly convoluted tale, entered with a familiarity earned through years of camaraderie. Her silver hair gleamed in the fading light, eyes filled with the patience of someone who had once weathered personal storms of her own. "Adrian," she began, her voice a gentle balm to his frayed nerves. "I see your backyard is busier than ever." With a nod, Adrian motioned to a chair. "It's been difficult," he confessed, each word an unburdening of the weight he'd carried so silently. Sarah sat, clasping his hand with a mix of solidarity and aged wisdom. "Your parents were special people," she mused, their memory drawing warmth into the cool evening air. "They found beauty in sharing. But they never let sharing be confused with taking. He sighed, the sound a soft capitulation. I thought I could manage it, keep everyone happy. But I'm starting to lose track of where my happiness fits in. In her own way, Sarah offered the guidance Adrian needed most. A pause, a moment to reflect on what truly mattered. Perhaps it's time to redefine what sharing means, she suggested, her gaze steady and reassuring. Your pool could be a place for everyone, Adrian, but it needs your voice guiding it. The notion, while serenely delivered, posed a challenge Adrian had avoided confronting openly. Yet, in Sarah's presence, the fear of expressing his needs dulled to an ember, no longer an unquenchable fire. Here was the heart of his struggle, a desperate yearning to reconcile the man he wanted to be with the barriers mounted by his cautious heart. The next day, as the sun hindered its climb above the horizon, Adrian resolved to take Sarah's advice to heart. The idea grew cautiously, nurtured by stray dreams of compromises and cooperative sincerity. Perhaps a shared endeavor, a way for everyone to contribute and cherish the space together, could extinguish the animosity simmering beneath their interactions. That evening, Adrian sat at the kitchen table, directly placing obsession against opportunity, sketches of plans unfolding like an artist's canvas before him. He crafted invitations not as demands but as hopeful treaties, heartfelt pleas to reignite camaraderie within the neighborhood. Each word bore the weight of his intentions, longing to breathe life into the once inert harmony he so craved. A community pool day, the invitation read, promising shared responsibilities, scheduled swim times, and, most importantly, an open dialogue about mutual respect. His sales pitch was simple: transcendence over turmoil, reclaiming joy by forging collective memories that respected and renewed bonds. Through the darkest hours before dawn, Adrian envisioned a harmonious revolution, where justice met patience and ownership intertwined with outreach. The leaves rustled with a rare evening breeze, echoing the refrains of his parents' legacy, a legacy he was determined to nurture, not sweep aside. In embracing this moment, Adrian was not merely seeking solutions. He was embarking on a restoration, a rekindling of self-discovery meticulously threaded with resilience. The days ahead loomed uncertain still, but with each penned word, with each outlined plan, he found himself awakening from complacency, a man forging peace amidst the depths of growing frustration. And perhaps, just perhaps, in building this shared tapestry called community, he could finally lay the ghosts of ungiven kindness to rest. As Adrian sat under the dim glow of the single kitchen bulb, the remnants of his previous conversations replayed with clarity that now felt bittersweet. The chamomile tea had turned cold, forgotten amidst the papers spread before him, each one a testament to the maelstrom of thoughts turning in his mind. Adrian rested his head in his hands, the roughened pages of old family cookbooks visible beyond, remnants of a simpler time when problems seemed no bigger than burnt cookies or underdone casseroles. The light tap on his back door echoed the earlier knock, a rhythm so familiar he recognized it without shifting from his thoughts. Sarah entered again, this time her presence a welcome anchor in an ocean of uncertainty. Her brows knitted in quiet curiosity as she pulled a chair beside him, glancing at the sheets strewn across the table. "You're planning a coup," she teased gently, one eyebrow raised in playful speculation as her eyes glimmered with encouragement. "Something like that," Adrian admitted, the hint of a smile elusive but genuine. He spread the sheets to show her the seeds of his resolve, tentative schedules penciled in soft lines, draft invitations imbued with a sincerity his halting voice seldom managed before laws and expectations. "Community Pool Day," Sarah read aloud, her voice holding a melody of hope and a hint of pride. "Yes," Adrian nodded, his voice more certain with each spoken word. "I realized. It's not about barricading myself from everyone else. It's about setting boundaries that let us all enjoy this space. I can't keep hiding behind politeness if it means sacrificing peace. This way, everyone involved takes responsibility. Everyone respects. Understands." Sarah smiled, a warm slice of light in the evening's creeping shadows. "It's ambitious, Adrian. But it has heart, your heart, and in my experience that's what truly lasts. His heart swelled against the confines of his ribcage. For so long, he'd been drifting between disenchantment and paralysis, watching the world encroach without knowing how to respond. Now, like the gradual bloom of dawn, clarity broke through, showing a way to rekindle not just his connection to the neighborhood but to himself. The days that followed pulsed with a different tempo, one Adrian embraced with newfound vigor. He hand-delivered his invitations, pausing at each neighbor's door with a nervousness mitigated only by determination. Surprisingly, hesitance was often met with warmth, a spark of curiosity, perhaps gratitude, in the eyes that regarded the offered invitations with careful scrutiny. Tom, the neighbor who often led the charge into his pool, paused momentarily when Adrian approached, a flicker of surprise passing over his usually affable features. Holding up a hand in greeting, he waited as his kids yelled good-naturedly in the background. "Hey Adrian, what's this about?" he asked, adjusting his tone to mold into his curiosity. Adrian handed over the invitation, his words rehearsed yet tender in their delivery. "I want to find a way for us all to enjoy the pool, but in a way that respects everyone's space and time. It's a community pool day, with a bit of structure." Tom scanned the invitation, his initial surprise melting into an expression of contemplation. "Looks like a good idea," he said at last, his acknowledgement genuine. "Guess maybe we did cross some lines. Thanks for bringing this to us. It sounds fair." With a touch more confidence, Adrian moved on, breaking into conversations that began with the typical pleasantries but carried undercurrents of unexpected honesty, a shared recognition of overstepped boundaries and, finally, an understanding of community beyond the mere sharing of space. When the day finally arrived, the air was vibrant with possibility. The weather, conspiratorial in its brilliance, draped the sky in azure waves, with clouds dancing lightly across its expanse. Neighbors gathered, hesitancy transformed into a collective endeavor, as tables were set up with snacks and pool gear organized with a new respectfulness born not of obligation but joy. The initial moments passed with stilted conversations, echoes of nerves and laughter that rang slightly too loud. Yet, as sun-drenched hours stretched on, defenses fell to the wayside, leaving behind shared smiles and the dawning realization that compromise could be as fulfilling as conquest. Children, once the unbridled chaos makers, now played with a guided sense of freedom, a maturation mirrored by parents who ventured into dialogue as easily as cannonballs, breaking surface tension with ease and joy. Adrian watched from his preferred vantage point, leaning against the pool's edge where his bare feet skimmed the surface. Satisfaction rolled through him like a breath held too long finally released, dispersing the last remnants of his unease into the sunbeam-dappled air. Sarah ambled over, carrying 2 cups of lemonade and happily taking up her position on the deck chair beside Adrian. Her gaze drifted over the scene, the families interwoven in shared responsibility, and the kids whose laughter, rather than grating, now played like a symphony harmonizing with the gentle winds. "It seems your plan worked," she observed mildly, passing Adrian a cup as a soft breeze ruffled her silver hair. "Not just my plan," he corrected gently. "Your plan. I couldn't have hoped to change it all without your advice." With a chuckle, he gestured to the organized chaos before them, families still weaving their dance of social exchange. "I just hope it sticks." Sarah squeezed his arm lightly, conveying the kind of confidence that buoyed him smoothly. "It will. Because it's built on understanding, and a real willingness to look beyond what's just easy or familiar. You've given them something tangible to hold on to. And yourself, Adrian." As twilight descended languidly, wrapping the neighborhood in tender colors and kindness, Adrian felt the closing curtain of contentment fall upon this day. The pool, now a beacon of shared sanctuary rather than contested space, stood testament to the triumph of mutual respect, the resilience birthed from struggle, and the redemption found in openness and collaboration. This was his journey, of reconciliation, of reclamation, and as the evening stars began their watchful gaze, Adrian knew this was the beginning of a story more profound than he could have imagined. A story woven by community, clarity, and the courage to rewrite one's path, surrounded not by fences alone, but by the dignity of chosen family, building together piece by piece. In the days leading up to the eagerly anticipated community pool day, the atmosphere in Adrian's neighborhood was a blend of curiosity and cautious optimism. Adrian, the reluctant orchestrator of this unprecedented event, found himself bustling with both excitement and a fair measure of humility. Each flyer he had delivered came back to him with smiles and nods, small assurances that his message had been received and appreciated. As the weekend dawned, Adrian rose with the sun, the morning light spilling golden across his yard. The pool sat like a gem amid a setting of dew-kissed grass and vibrant flowers, all belying the turmoil and tension it had once harbored. Today, it would serve as a bridge rather than a barrier, a space where grievances could dissipate like fog burned away by the heat of new beginnings. Adrian moved about with focused intent, setting up tables with snacks and refreshing pitchers of chilled lemonade. The charm of the day lay in its simplicity, its ability to unite without requiring grandiosity. He placed balloons on the mailbox, a beacon for the gathering to come, and with each task completed, a small weight lifted from his shoulders. As the clock edged toward the time of the event, neighbors began to filter in, their faces etched with tentative excitement. At first, there was a timidness, a dance of observation and unspoken questions as they took in the thoughtfully arranged scene. Yet, the inviting openness of the pool and the warmth of the summer air soon encouraged a more relaxed atmosphere. Tom was among the first to arrive, a reliable presence among the unfolding scene. His children swarmed the backyard, their energy a testament to missed boundaries now eagerly respected. "Adrian!" Tom called out from the crowd, his voice carrying a newfound camaraderie. "This is quite a setup. Thanks for pulling it all together." Adrian extended a hand, a symbolic gesture that bridged past grievances. "Thank you for coming," he replied, his sincerity reflected in the eyes of his once contentious neighbor. People drifted closer, clustering in groups that began as clusters of uncertainty but soon evolved into jovial conversation. Conversations flowed like the gentle lap of water against the pool's edge, a murmur of contentment rather than dissonance. Sarah arrived, accompanied by her grandson, whose wide eyes absorbed the scene with innocent wonderment. She greeted Adrian with a hug that conveyed volumes, underscoring the undercurrent of support and community spirit she had helped nurture. "Looks like everyone's having a great time, Adrian," she noted, settling beside him once more. Adrian surveyed the scene, his own smile unfurling slowly yet decisively. "It seems like they are," he acknowledged. A sense of satisfaction and gratitude swelled within him, a recognition that the space reclaimed bore witness to more than just social courtesy. It heralded an unmasking of genuine goodwill. As the afternoon ripened under the sun's benevolent gaze, so too did the interactions amongst the crowd. Parents navigated the delicate balance between vigilance and relaxation, allowing their children the freedom to explore within the sanctuary of safety that had been renewed. The noisy cacophony of splashes and shouts now represented electricity forged from happiness rather than hindrance. The pool became a stage for tentative reconciliations, adults broaching discussions that shifted from the mundane to the insightful. Discussions about more than just pool etiquette, questions of community, shared experiences, and unwritten social contracts. Adrian listened, partaking when prompted and stepping back when he felt the need to observe the fruits of his labor unfold naturally. As shadows lengthened and the hue of the sky transformed into a dappled masterpiece, the event gradually shifted gears. Families prepared to depart, but not without a new sense of connectedness that buoyed them as they gathered their towels and children. Adrian stood by the gate, thanking each person for coming, noting the warmth and sincerity in their responses, a stark contrast to the chill that had threatened to linger before. When the last of the guests had bid their farewells, Adrian found himself alone but fulfilled. The yard, once full, now quiet, bore the remnants of a day that had proved the worth of persistence and the beauty of forgiveness. The pool's surface, shimmering softly under the twilight, mirrored the completeness he felt within. Yet Sarah remained, perched once again on her favored chair. Quite the day, wasn't it? She mused, her voice mingling with the symphony of approaching night. Adrian joined her, drawn by the need to savor the closing notes of a chapter well written. It was, he agreed, staring at the stars that slowly began their vigil. I probably learned more today than I have in a long time. Smiling, Sarah offered her take. Life has a funny way of teaching us what we need to know when we're ready to learn it, don't you think? In the quiet aftermath, each sound, whether rustling leaves or distant laughter, was imbued with meaning. This was not just the conclusion of a single day, but an introduction to a story renewed in trust and friendship. Returning to his own place beside the pool's edge, Adrian let his fingers dip into the cool water, drawing circles that rippled outward, much like the impact of his actions. The realization that he had transformed a struggle into a statement of resilience, not just for himself but through an entire community, settled into him with reassuring certainty. And so, as Adrian prepared to retreat for the evening, he took with him the knowledge that today had been a pivotal turn, a testament to the power of vulnerability met with vision, asserting that when hearts open, the horizon becomes boundless. The silence that followed was profound yet comforting, as the neighborhood that had once seemed a hodgepodge of isolation became, through his determination, a tapestry of shared hope. The day's warmth lingered in the cool of the evening, a soft reminder of the small victories won against the backdrop of a once contentious neighborhood. Adrian remained near his oasis, the pool now a tranquil basin of reflection rather than conflict. The water gleamed under the pale light of an emerging moon, a silent partner in his journey toward harmony. Sarah, ever the wise observer, remained, as did her unspoken invitation to linger. Adrian sat down beside her, their shared silence filled with the unspoken bond of understanding. The day's success hadn't just been measured by laughter or new partnerships, but in the realization of what could be achieved through sincerity and a willingness to change. You know, Adrian began, his voice low, carrying a contented timbre, I think I underestimated just how much this sort of change was possible. It's easy to forget how much power we hold in the small choices. Sarah nodded, her smile warm and knowing. We all get wrapped up in our worlds, Adrian. Sometimes it takes a bit of courage and a lot of heart to really see beyond what's in front of us. Their conversation drifted like the evening breeze, touching on moments long past and dreams yet to be realized. Adrian found himself weaving tales of his childhood, of summers spent in this very yard, paint peeling beneath his fingers as he helped his father care for the pool's edge. Sentiments wrapped around their words, bittersweet and nostalgic, painting vivid pictures on the canvas of memory. The night deepened, the scent of freshly bloomed jasmine intertwining with the cool air. The stars twinkled above, mirroring the reflection of possibility he felt burgeoning inside. It was a quiet realization that sometimes, the most profound journeys stem from places of discomfort and unlikely change. Do you think everyone felt it too? Adrian asked, his gaze still set on the rippling water. The philosophical undercurrent of their talk resonated within him, a steady beat of optimism. Sarah's gaze flitted skyward, considering. Efficiency isn't just in solving a single problem. It's in recognizing that a community is like a tapestry, each thread contributing to its strength. I'd wager they'll feel the ripples of today in ways they might not even recognize yet. Adrian took this in, her words a balm soothing his residual doubts. Change rarely ever felt immediate, he acknowledged, but today had set intentions in motion. As he'd watched neighbors trickle through his gate earlier, signing the communal agreement he had drafted, he'd realized that his role was not just as a planner but as a facilitator of perspective. He recalled the laughter of children splashing in the shallow end, each joyful cry a piece of evidence that passion and hope often lay in the most innocent places. Adults, sometimes burdened by mistrust shaped from years of slighted interactions, had found common ground over cups of lemonade and shared goals. His heart swelled with a burgeoning gratitude for those little instances that had seemed inconsequential but became the foundation of today's triumph. He saw through to what it really meant. An ecosystem of harmony, beginning with acknowledgement and cultivated through shared responsibility. Community is a resilient thing, Adrian said, as much to himself as to Sarah. I believe today was proof that fences can come down and bridges can be built right over the water. A borrowed line from somewhere, he chuckled lightly. Sarah chuckled, their camaraderie easy and unfettered. You're right, and the beauty is, tomorrow we all awake to those same bridges, hopefully a little stronger, all thanks to a man who chose to open his space, and his heart, instead of closing doors. The pool chair, where she had spent countless sunsets, stood beside her as Adrian helped her up. Together they surveyed the yard, each corner of it speaking of potential and of promises kept. As much as it was a place, it had become its own entity, a place where shadows of the past could coexist with the possibilities of the future shining bright. Their goodbyes were simple, affirmations not just of the day's success but of the steadfast friendship between them. As Sarah ambled toward her home, her footsteps light with the burdenless weight of fulfillment, Adrian stood still, appreciating the profound quiet that descended once more. He strolled to the water's edge again, sinking to a steady crouch. The day, in its ebbs and flows, had taught him more than he had anticipated about justice and redemption. Justice in the sense of righting wrongs but through understanding rather than force. Redemption, not just from neighborhood tensions but within himself, finding a way back to the patience and generosity he valued. With these reflections stirring him gently, Adrian allowed himself a rare indulgence, hope. With an emotional buoyancy that felt soothingly new, he ran fingers through the water, scattering moonlit reflections, his actions echoing the broader change that had begun to ripple outward. Tomorrow promised nothing definitive, yet it gleamed with potential, a canvas waiting to be filled by a community willing to learn and to grow. For Adrian, knowing he'd done his part, that the pool, a mere physical attribute, had become a symbol of unity, was dream enough to carry him forward and keep him anchored. And as the pale moon rose higher, casting its calm clarity over the tranquil water and the now silent street beyond, Adrian retreated with peace in his heart, guided by stars and all the whispers of what a single day could accomplish through purpose and the quiet strength of reconciliation.